5, 4. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today on Training Friday is Brooke Cheney. Brooke is from a Great Start Shooting School. She is in Connecticut, which means, she's not in the most free state. She has to put up with some restrictions, but she's still out there getting it done. And by the way, not only is she a great shooting instructor, she's a great advocate for our rights, and she's fighting the good fight out there in Connecticut. Brooke, thanks for coming along today.
Thank you. So I just taught a class today. So okay. I was just looking at my table because this is a list of just some of our Connecticut firearms laws, and this is not even all of them. So yes, it's a big fight out here in Connecticut, just like New York and Massachusetts. And I never thought I'd say this, but Massachusetts is in way more trouble than us if their current legislation goes through. So okay. Yes, we almost fight all the time, unfortunately. And those of you in free states, God bless you. I appreciate you, but fight for us anyway.
Now, let me ask this. Last weekend, they just wrapped up this big rally in Boston. Were you able to go there?
I was not. I was shooting the New England Regional IDPA match championship. So while Carrie Ann, Amanda, Charlie, etc., and Holly and all of them were up there doing that, I was running around shooting things.
There you go.
I was not able to make it. I'm not that good to be in two places at once.
It's a tough job, but somebody's got to go shooting every once in a while.
And it wasn't even bad weather. So it was a little bit cloudy, then it got really sunny, and then it got cloudy again. It wasn't bad.
All right, let's get started on the topic today, because you and I could talk about what's been going on for the 30 minutes and then totally blow off what we're supposed to talk about.
Right.
But let's talk dry fire to start with, and that's something that's mentioned all the time, and it will make you better, but it's something that is a little tough to convey over video and for you podcast listeners over audio. Brooke, and you're currently in the middle of a dry fire challenge. Tell us what you do for dry fire.
All right, so to make it as simple as possible, because I believe in the KISS theory, right? Keep it simple, sweetheart, because I was trained by Mary Kay, not by a sailor, is that all the things you do with a firearm, whether it is loading the gun, unloading the gun, opening the cylinder if you're working with a revolver, or sliding making the slide go back and locking it in place so you can see you have an empty gun. Those were the first things that I learned during dry fire. I had been a gun owner forever, and I had never heard about dry fire until I got into competition. And dry fire is just how to handle your firearm without any ammo anywhere in the room that you are practicing in. Because safety is always rule number one when it comes to any practice, whether you're at the range or at home. So dry fire is learning how to manipulate your gun without having to spend time at the range, money at the range, or ammo. So dry fire is the cheapest way to learn how to be proficient with your firearm. Sound good enough, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when I do my dry fire, I go one step beyond that. There's one specific area in my house that I go to. And not only is there not any ammunition in the room, but my target is set up against a bookshelf so that should a bullet somehow magically appear in the firing chamber, when I activate that trigger, it goes into the books and ruins a few books.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
here in New England, we've got lots of basements. Basements are pretty awesome to practice in because basically it's going to be a wall. There's lots of rules and regulations, but you're still following all of the same safety rules. Guns always point in a safe direction. People go, well, I'm at my home, not at the range. Where is that? Well, this is one of those things when before you start dry firing, you're going to figure out, all right, where is the safest place for me to dry fire? Like I said, if you live in an area that has basements, that's one of the easiest places to go. As long as your ammo is not already in your basement, because you really do want to do it in a room that does not ever have ammo. Not just you bring in and bring out. I tell people make it dual purpose. When you clean your firearm and when you do dry practice, just have one place in your home or your apartment where no ammo ever goes. And that's one of the most important things I think to remember about when you're doing dry fire.
And I also want to put a little bit of a plug in. Today, you've got an entire series of videos on dry fire on your YouTube page. And I was going through and I watched a whole lot of them today. And you can break, and we'll be watching a little bit of one of your videos here in a little bit, but you can, in your dry fire, you explain how to break down each part of the draw stroke and how, where you find where you need work and how to work on that part.
Yeah. It is definitely one of those things that being in competition and getting professional training has made a huge difference. Because I remember, I know you're going to bring up the draw video, so I'm going to just talk about that real quick. Hopefully it won't ruin the video. But it's like when you watch a video of someone drawing, you see them pull the gun, point it, and pull the trigger. But you don't realize how many different steps are actually happening. And as a teacher, I like to break stuff down into little tiny chunks because for the most part, that's what all of my coaches and teachers have done in the past. So something as simple as creating your grip. Like for those of you out there listening or watching, those of you who've been shooting all your life, you have no idea how much stuff you're doing to create that grip that you've been using all of your life. And this is why I'm going to get sexist here for a moment, is that all these men who want to teach their wives how to shoot usually can't because they have no idea how much stuff they're doing just to create that grip. Much less do they pay attention to how they're standing or what their sight picture actually looks like. Because I was a dumb gun bunny in that I'd go to the range, someone would hand me a gun, I'd pull the trigger, I'd hand it back to them. I didn't know what my sight picture looked like. I couldn't tell you what my grip looked like. I couldn't tell you anything until I started training. And dry fire is a great way to, like the videos I've got up on there, it was a 30-day challenge. It is over now. Thank you. But there are a bunch of videos up there. But it's just, it breaks down in little tiny pieces, gives you little pieces to chunk, especially if you're brand new. And even if you have been shooting all your life, you might still learn something there because I've had people come into my classroom who've been shooting 30, 40 years, and I just teach them the safety stuff. They're like, oh, I never knew that. I'm like, okay.
Well, and
you never know what you can learn.
I do not believe it's on the video we're going to watch, but there was a different video, and you, in this video, decreased your load time, your reload time from 3.5 seconds down to 2 seconds. And let me tell you, somebody who's been shooting for a dozen years now, handguns, rifles I've been shooting my entire life. As somebody's been shooting handguns for a dozen years now, a 2-second reload is pretty impressive.
Thanks. And the other part to remember when you're dry firing, if you are actually using tools to like time yourself, the other part to realize what you do in dry fire is generally not the same result you're going to get in live fire. But it at least gives you that mental and that physical repetitions. So, because my 2-second dry fire reload may or may not be 2.5 seconds on the range. But unless you're measuring stuff, you won't know. And that's another part of training in general is you need to know what your draw time is. You need to know what your reload time is if you're trying to make it better. So.
And the real reason we do all this, the competition, the training, the practice, the real reason is to be sure we can do it if in real life something goes very, very bad. And it goes incredibly bad because you used up one magazine of ammunition, and that ain't enough. So,
or there was a malfunction you didn't know how to clear, or there's lots of things because dry fire you can simulate malfunctions. You can put dummy rounds in there. Because remember, we're never going to have live ammo around, but you can have dummy ammo for your gun. And I was looking around because I'm just like, where's my Kathy Jackson book, The Cornered Cat? It talks about in there how it's like you will go in a stress situation, you're going to go to your lowest training. Like the worst day you ever had on the range, if you're under high stress, that's going to be it. And how do we make that better? Got a lot more reps in, and so that your worst day is still pretty good.
All right, let me do this. I think it's time that we go ahead and I've got this queued up. I need to push a couple buttons here, and it's going to take just a second. Here we
By
go.
the magic. We'll start. But what are most of our
Oh,
starts?
hang
Most
on.
of our starts.
My video's not moving. Let's see if
I
we can.
know.
There we go. Let's see if we can maybe make the video move.
Starts are from the holster. So when I'm practicing starts, here it is. Up to the gun. Clear the holster. Press out to your eye level. Back in. All done. Put it back. That's it. However, as I was telling a student today, it takes a lot to get to that point. Here are the things we're looking for. 1, hands relaxed at sides. Usually we pick somewhere on our thighs that we're touching, or maybe we're touching the bottom of our holster. 2, when we're practicing learning how to do this, it's a little bit up, a little bit down. So again, just like we just did on the table start, I really want to make sure I'm high on my grip. I want to make sure there's no possibility of me not having what I want. Oh, hold on. Of me doing something like this. So I'm keeping my hand close to my body to push out so that I never do something like that. So both hands relaxed at side. They come up at the same time. The difference is my support hand is closer to my body. All right, so on a signal, up, out, and straight out. Now, one.
All right, let's go ahead and talk about that a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video here. I love the fact this is something I do and I've done since my very first professional instructor course. The very first instructor that came up to teach me how to shoot is you take your non-shooting hand and it plants on your chest. And when you're going to put the thing away, you plant that same hand, same spot on your chest. I love that, and for the reason you describe, it takes that hand out of the equation as far as getting involved with the firearm until you are up, and then they come to meet together and you go out to present to target.
And part of it is also just the economy of the movement, right? Is like all of your body is coming up, and by your hand being here in front of you, now you're meeting the gun, and it's already convenient, and it's safer. So we've got, it's always safety first, then speed. So that's definitely one of my favorite parts. And the biggest challenge I see most people have is, for whatever reason, and I haven't figured this one out after 10 years of teaching, but when they go to put their gun back in their holster, they want to put their hand in front of the holster, which means now the gun's going to come over their hand. So that's another reason to have a safe place for your hand to go.
Now, I am one, and I still, 12 years of shooting handgun now, as well as, like I said, a lifetime of shooting rifles. I still look my gun into the holster, and I will claim until the day they put me under the ground, there's nothing wrong with that, because if you're putting your gun away, the danger has passed. You do not need to be quick putting your gun back into the holster, and you can take your time and look at it to make sure you're safe.
Right. And it is funny to me where it's like, I know I've had people make fun of me. It's like, what are you looking at? I'm like, dude, so I primarily, all I do is competition, right? I run around, I'm on a safe place, all of that. And so even on the range, people are like, well, why are you looking? And I'm like, why not? Like, well, what if there's danger? I'm like, then why are you putting your gun away?
Yes.
No danger, we're not putting our guns away. So yes, it is sort of one of those things. And as a safety officer for IDPA and a range officer for USPSA, we really don't want you to try to find where the heck that holster is, especially when you don't really know. So with your hand here, you look down there and you shove it in there gently. There's no time limit, and that's almost always part of the safety brief of almost every competition I go to, is you're not on the clock while we are reholstering. And as a safety officer and a range officer, it's definitely one of those things where I'm just like, unload, show clear. Okay, it's empty. We know that. But what do we also know? We treat all guns as if they are loaded always. So when that muzzle starts to go back towards the people behind you, it's no longer in a safe direction. So yeah, that is Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
Let me get a comment in here. We are getting some good comments in. Let me get this one in from George. George says it's always worth reminding folks not to mimic the gun handling you see on TV
Oh my
and
gosh.
in the movies. Uh, are you meaning to tell me, George? George, are you trying to tell me I'm not John Wick? I mean, come on.
So, to be fair, John Wick had true training from
Yes.
Taron. So, of all the examples, that's the worst one to give as a bad example because he actually does proper gun handling skills. It's the cop shows that you see, and
The Law and
um,
Order. Yes.
yes, every other gun show that you've seen. I'm a big NCIS fan. Oh, look at their gun handling. If you understand what's happening, it will make you cringe. So, and there is not one size fits all. There is stuff that is acceptable as long as it's safe. So, not everybody does the same thing, but we do always make sure safety is number one. And
Okay,
I know.
George. George, I will agree with you on this one. You're not Alec Baldwin. Yeah, I'm much better looking.
Oh, sorry. Like, well, all of December, all my students came in and said, "So, what do you think?" I'm like, here's the deal. If you have a firearm in your hand, you are 1000% responsible for anything that leaves that firearm. No one else is responsible other than you. Now, if you are someone who is teaching someone else, this is still true because you better be teaching them that you look at the gun, it is empty. You hand it to them, you tell them they should be looking to verify it is empty. And then you go on with it, whatever you're doing. Just like up at SIG Academy, how they teach, you rack your slide back, you look away, you think about something else, you go and verify again. So you even check twice. So yes,
As
Alec Baldwin, he is
as,
responsible for what happens.
as someone who has minor ADHD and my kids got major ADHD, I had a minor case of it as a kid. I I can be starting to. Somebody could hand me a firearm. I will check by look and feel. I'll stick my pinky in there to make sure there's not a bullet in there. But I don't trust just my eyes. But I can be doing something and I'll turn away for 3 seconds and somebody starts handing me a gun. Why are you handing me this gun? I've forgotten what's going on already.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I got one up on you a little bit. I'll be in the middle of a sentence and I'll stop. I'll be like, hey, honey, was I talking? He's like, yeah. Oh, yes. And I didn't have a stroke, so there. That's just my natural ability.
I didn't bring that, and I get told I bring that up too often. I didn't bring it up that time.
No, I know, but I'm just saying, I've watched you enough to know. And I was like, no, people are like, oh, when you get older. I'm like, no, I just had a birthday. I've been an airhead since I was born.
All right,
So,
now we are gonna this is
all
how
right.
this show goes. We're turning left again because
All right.
this
We're at
comments
8:18. 8:18 is my birthday, so we should probably get back on track.
firearms portrayed in movies drives that there's no firearm in the world I know of that would make a full-grown adult go flying backwards 10 feet in the air. I do know of one, but that's mounted on a plane and goes brrrt. That's the only one, and I don't know of a person fired round that would make somebody fly back like that. Simple laws of physics.
And it just depends on what you know.
Yeah, the every action creates an equal and opposite reaction. So if the projectile is going to send somebody flying back 10 feet, it's going to send the person shooting it back 10 feet. Same force both ways.
You must be thinking of those blow out a lung
Yeah,
size
the lung blower outers,
lung
yes.
blower outer. That's probably it. All right, so back to dry fire. To get
Yes.
better at lung blowing outer, no, to get better at hitting your target, the great thing about dry fire is trigger control. Of all the things in the world as a shooter that you're always going to work on to get better and better is absolutely your trigger control. And dry fire allows you to move your trigger and actually see what you are doing to the sights and to the gun and everything else. Because when we are live on the range with actual ammunition, when we pull the trigger, there's so much stuff happening with the bang and the recoil and all of that, we don't see what our lovely little trigger finger is doing. In dry fire, there's this great drill called the white wall drill, where you literally just point your gun at a white wall, well, at a blank wall. You're not trying to actually aim at anything, but you get your sights lined up and you move your trigger. If you're a red dot guy or girl, then you look at your red dot. Red dots are evil. They really show you what you're doing with your fingers. So when each time you pull the trigger, you see, do my sights move at all? Am I moving my sights as I'm pulling the trigger? Because that is probably the number one thing that I find in teaching people as to why they're not hitting the target. And they will get to see their flinch. And everyone's like, that's not true. You know there's not anything in the gun to go off. And I'm like, your brain really doesn't.
Yeah.
That's why we have to do all of these reps.
And I'm going to bring that video back up again in a few seconds. When I do, I hope I'm at the point, I think I am, where you do go through a couple draws. I want you to watch Brooke as she goes through and does this dry fire. And I want you to see how stable it is, how stable the firearm is when she, there we go, I'm getting things set up again. I want you to see how stable it is when she actually pulls the trigger. There is absolutely no flinch anywhere in what she does. Let's go to that for just a second here. And I got to come over here and hit that.
All the time. The most common thing is, let's go fishing. And so that student was out of the holster, but then went up and then came back down. Now, there is a group of people who are taught to do that. They're taught to look at the target and then come back down onto it. And I had that earlier last week as well, where they go up and then come back down. And that's a style. However, when we are being timed and trying to be as accurate as possible, because of the timing portion, we want to be as efficient as possible. And you know that triangle thing, straight line, fastest place to get somewhere? So up and this, going directly to on target, is faster and more efficient than letting it go past the target and then coming back down. So also safety-wise, there is one whatever that's called, one range we go to up at State Academy. If you go up, you're disqualified because the berms that they have, if you go over the berm, because just this little tilt here is really far once you get away from the gun.
I'm going to skip forward a little bit here and try and find to where
we're... dislikes is this with a gun. Doesn't matter what it's empty. It's up.
I'm going to go ahead and mute it so we can talk about it. There you can see Brooke pulling the trigger, and it is absolutely stable when she does. And again, absolutely stable. Not the tiniest little bit of flinch there. I'm going to come back. And you had I'm glad we played that video because you also showed fumbling with trying to go back into the holster.
Right. Well, and as I was saying, I'm like, oh, look, that's what we were just talking about, is look and see where it goes. And I know we talked about hands being up here, but there are exceptions. If you are a large, rounded belly person, there are times when you need to go grab your belly and pull it up and over so you can see into your holster. And for some of the women that we have that are shooting who have rather large upper body parts,
they have those?
And have to move them over. Well, these are the sort of things like guys don't want to talk about, but I'm like, no, if your girl that you're trying to teach is overflowing, you have to explain to them, yes, grab that, pull it over so you can actually see down there. So, yes, between bellies and boobs, that's what we got for tonight.
And and there is one more exception, and I want to bring it up here. As a guy that is rather fond of wearing, I don't have any in the studio where I can reach them. A guy that is fond of wearing loose Hawaiian shirts, you lose this to reholster. You now go back behind you, pull that shirt around, and tag it here before you. So it's totally out of the way when you go to reholster.
Right. And there's always more than one way to do that as well. But yes, I mean, I joke about this at competitions. Like, my least favorite thing is tucking my shirt in so I don't get anything caught.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, taking the holster off and untucking my shirt is the favorite part. So,
All right. Well, we are coming down. We've gone through 25 minutes already, and I promise to have you out of here in under 30. But I want to mention, if you need more of Brooke in your life, you are in luck, especially tomorrow night.
Oh my goodness.
Because Brooke will be joining me at 7 p.m. Central Time, the only time zone that matters. She'll be joining me for the Bullet, and then you do suicide prevention at 8 Central Time, 9 Eastern Time, and then after that, you're on yet one more show.
Yes, Hillbilly Up. It's YouTube / Hillbilly Up, and it's a new channel I just found, and he asked me to be a guest, and voila. So at 10 p.m. Eastern, so 9 p.m. your Central Time, I will be doing that, and it's usually a 2-hour show, and I told him after an hour I'm done because I need to go to bed because I'm teaching on Sunday. But yes, tomorrow is a full day of me online.
All right. And everybody, do please go check out Brooke's YouTube channel, A Great Start Shooting School. And you got to check her out Saturday nights. As soon as the bullet goes dark, go over to Brooke's channel because she does suicide prevention Saturdays. It's an incredibly important thing she does, and I think she needs to get millions of followers for that. So,
well, thank you. And just so people don't get freaked out by the name, we're not always talking about people killing themselves. We talk about mental health, things you can do, resources that are available, how to find someone if you know someone who needs help. That's probably the phone call I get the most often, is they have a friend who's in distress. So just because you check out Suicide Prevention Saturday does not mean you're suicidal, but you might need to have some information that will help you help someone who is.
Exactly. So. Yeah. I had a friend as a young person that looking back as an adult, I know that I saw signs, but I didn't put everything together. And I wish I'd have had the knowledge I have now back then. I may still have a friend. So.
Well, I mean, in that's the survivor's guilt, and we talk about that sometimes because that's the other phone call I get is, hey, my neighbor's kid just committed suicide. What do I do? So there are all sorts of things. So, and you can't always tell, even if you think you could.
Yeah. Warsaw Patriot. Great suggestion there. Walk the Talk America.
Yes, and I have interviews on my channel if you want to go back. That I have interviews with Jake Wickerstein and the other guy, the guy who actually founded it. I can't think of his name right now. I'm good like that. But
you got me too.
I got interviews. I got interviews with lots of interesting people. I'm going to try to actually start that back up again and do some more interviews with people. I have this. Yeah, I've got amazing stories out there. So.
All right.
All right, sir. We have 2 minutes left. What do we do now?
I think we just go ahead and shut it down. I want to remind everybody this is the last of the Monday through Friday broadcasts. We will be back tomorrow night for our weekend wrap-up show, which is the entire week's news in review. Brooke will be here, Rob Morse will be here, and Dan Waz will be here to talk about all the stories of the week, including tomorrow, Nebraska becomes magic number 26. The law goes into effect tomorrow in Nebraska. The majority of the nation, state number-wise, does become permitless carry tomorrow. A lot of other topics, but we sure talking about that one. That is going to do it for us today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Podcast listeners, I hope you got something good out of this, too. Thank you for listening. And, folks, we will see you next time.